Hey everybody, welcome back. We got a really important topic to talk about today, and that is large constrictor bites. Any of us that keep large snakes, reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, rock pythons, anacondas, all of that, you know, they may be the most pleasant, the most docile animals in the world, but we can all make mistakes and bad things can happen. And if we're going to have these animals, we really need to make sure that we know what to do. So the key points that we're going to hit on today are what causes a snake to bite, what causes them to strike at us. You're going to go over the mechanics a little bit. I'm going to show you, what their jaws look like, how they work, how many teeth they've got, how big they are, how they're shaped. I'm going to show you a picture of a couple of the wounds that I've taken over the years, as I've taken some bites from some pretty big snakes. And we really want to reiterate the importance of having an additional person there with you when you're handling your large snakes. And I'm going to give a bit of a demonstration to show how difficult it can be to manage these bites properly by yourself, and why it's so important to have somebody else there. And we're going to talk about some ways to get that animal to release. There's all kinds of different techniques out there. Some are better than others, and I'll just show you a couple examples of that. And hopefully by the time we get done here, you guys have got a lot better understanding of, man, I've never been bit before, what's it like, what can I expect, and be a little bit more comfortable mitigating it, if and when that happens to you. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. So there's really only a couple of reasons why we're going to get bit by our snakes. You're either going to have a mistaken food response. It's going to be a defensive strike where they're frightened or so forth. And you'll see a lot of males get kind of hyped up around breeding time and so forth, and they pretty much take a pop at anything when they get really excited like that. And one thing that I found through all of the snakes that I've worked with is that crucial moment is right when you're first going into the enclosure, because you can't really tell too much if they're just sitting still what their frame of mind is at that time. Until they start moving around, you can read their body language. So one of the things that you'll find is that defensive strikes, a frightened snake is going to strike at you, and he's not going to latch onto you. He's just popping you. He's letting you know, hey, I'm scared. I don't want you to mess with me. Leave me alone. There's really not much to manage with those outside of going out and putting a bandage on it, because it happens so quickly. You just take that pop, they're back in their position, and there's really not much else you need to do with it. Now, when you get a mistaken feeding response, those can be really tricky to manage, and that's the whole reason why we're so vehement about encouraging people to have somebody else around, having a spotter around when you're managing your snakes. Typically, once you get them out of the enclosure, once they know what's going on, you don't have to worry about it. And it's always that first encounter you have with them where you're most likely to get wrapped up. Now, I've had this happen to me a couple times. The biggest bite that I've ever taken was from a 16-foot female, and it was a mistake on my part. I had my hand too close to her face when I was first going into the enclosure. She got a hold of my wrist, and in a split second she had my arm wrapped up, my shoulders, she was all over me. So how these bites work is snakes have got the ability to open their mouths about 180 degrees, which means that they can have all 6 rows of those teeth flat up, pointed at you. And that's what happened when I took one bite. And you can see what happened here. Took a bite from my female. It was a mistake while feeding. I had the prey item up, and she sailed right past the prey item and just stuck in my chest. Now that was pretty easy to manage. She was smaller at the time. I just got a hold of her, pulled her off of me, put her back in the enclosure, and everything was good. Went ahead a couple seconds later, gave her the food, and she was fine. But the thing that makes snake bites so tricky is that I'm going to use reticulated pythons as the example here, but these animals have got 6 rows of teeth in their mouth, and they're all recurved. They're all curved back like little fishing hooks. So when they do get a hold of you, I mean, you can't pull them off. If you try pulling them directly off your arm, they're going to get teeth lodged in you. It's going to slice your flesh. It's going to hurt the snake. So once they get a hold of you, there's no pulling them off without hurting yourself or hurting the animal. So there's a couple really important things to remember if you get a bite and you get wrapped up. And first and foremost, stay calm. Don't fight it. You know, it's really a waiting game with these animals once they get a hold of you. You can't freak out. Don't jump up and down and scream and whatnot. I mean, it's gonna hurt. When I got my wrist bit, you know, those teeth for the better part of almost 5 minutes were just digging into my bones and tendons, and all you can do at that point is to just wait for that animal to release. I've seen people, you know, putting the credit cards in their mouth and so forth, get them to release. You know, you see people trying to put things into their mouth and pry the snake's mouth off of you. You know, I'm sure those things may work. I'm not a fan of using an object like that on them just because I don't want to hurt the animal. You know, it's not that animal's fault that it got a hold of me. It's my fault. And I don't want to inflict any further injury on it because I made a mistake and now the snake's got a hold of me. So a couple of things, as a matter of fact, before I go into that, you know, we hear everybody talking about needing a spotter, and why we need somebody else there to help us mitigate. And of course, I'm not going to bring one of my snakes out here and get a snake bite, but I am going to show you something. And this is going to go into a couple things. I brought this rope out here, and I think this is really a pretty good demonstration. So let's say, for instance, I just opened up the enclosure, and you know, my 16-foot snake is in there. He's cruising around. He looks like he's happy to see me. I slide open the door with my hand. He comes around the side and gets a hold of me. So say he's got a hold of my wrist. Okay, let's say, for instance, this animal's got my wrist. The first thing you do when this animal gets a hold of you is you need to secure their head. Now, you don't squeeze them, you don't choke them, but you need to get a firm enough grip on that animal so that its head and its teeth aren't ripping your skin. You know, you're trying to keep it in one place until this whole encounter's over with. Now, if you got a 16-foot snake, as soon as it latches onto you around your arm, it's going to do this. It's going to go up here. There's a whole bunch of snakes, so it's going to go around here, and now you're wrapped up in snake. Now what do we do? So now you've got 6 rows of teeth buried in your arm, and this snake thinks it needs to constrict you because you're dinner, and it's got you and it's latching on. Well, it's very difficult, if not impossible, depending on where you got bit at, to maintain control of that snake's, you know, mouth and to get it unwrapped off of you. I mean, because both your hands are occupied. One hand's in his mouth, the other hand's controlling him. So you've got 2 choices there. You can either let go of this and then start fighting to unwrap. You can see this thing just happened around here. Could easily be around there. You've got to be cognizant of where the rest of his body is. You can see I've got this rope right here on my chin. One thing, this is like any style of grappling 101. Anything starts to go around your neck, the first thing that you do is tuck your chin down. You'd rather have your chin down and have that thing pushing on your chin, have it pushing on your face, than you would have it get under your chin, because once one of these strong snakes gets under your chin, thinks you're dinner, then you're going to have a problem. And where the spotter comes in is that, I mean, you've got to make a judgment call there. If that animal's got you right here and you're controlling the head and there's nobody around and it starts to wrap up around your neck, the only option that you've got is to release that head. Whatever happens to your arm happens to your arm, and you've got to get your chin tucked and you got to start unwrapping that animal, and you're going to be working it like this. You're going to be working to get it off, and that whole time that mouth is just going to be grinding on your arm. So, you know, doing it by yourself, it's possible, but it is worst case scenario. Absolutely. You want to be able to keep control of that animal, and then whoever your spotter is going to come in and start to wrap that animal off of you. Now, a lot of times what I found is as soon as you get that animal stretched out and it's not wrapped around you anymore, a lot of times they'll just release on their own. Best case scenario, you know, they come off, they kind of get stretched out on the floor, they're starting to realize, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to eat this, or, you know, naturally they feel like the prey item has escaped or something like that, so they recoil off and so forth, and you're just left with a couple holes in your arm. Worst case for me is I've actually got permanent tendon damage in my right hand. I can't pull it back all the way because when he got a hold of me, there's just scar tissue in there, and now my wrist doesn't work like it used to. But neither here nor there. So that's why it's really important to have another person around, just in case something like that happens. My personal experiences with snake bites, I've gotten several strikes, I've gotten several bites and wraps. I've also had to help somebody out who had gotten, I think probably one of the worst ones that I've seen is a guy who was taking the glass off of a bottom enclosure, didn't really see the snake saw his hand, hit him so hard it broke bones in his hand. And then of course he had the bite and wrap to deal with after that. Another one that, you know, was kind of worrisome is, you know, I heard somebody from a mile over kind of yell, kind of grunt, whatever. I didn't pay much attention to it at first, and I was like, you know what, maybe I better go check on him. Well, when I went over there to see him, that animal had a hold underneath his arm, and it had wrapped his neck, and it had wrapped him so tight that he couldn't breathe. So, you know, immediately I've got him controlling the snake's head. I get it off of his neck, all that. We get the snake off of him and so forth. Everything's fine. You know, he's got a little sore spot on his arm. But, you know, that really reiterates how important it is to have somebody available to help you, worst case scenario. So there's a couple techniques for getting these snakes to release once they get a hold of you. You know, once you've got the head secured, and, you know, if they're just wrapped around you, get them wrapped off. If they still don't want to release after that, or if you just can't really manage getting them unraveled off of you and your partner can't help you, then we always keep a bottle of Listerine, spray bottle of Listerine handy, and we'll just shoot that, you know, straight into the snake's mouth. Gets into their pits, gets into their mouth, doesn't taste good, it irritates them. A lot of times that's what'll snap them out of that food response, realize that they don't want this, they're not hungry anymore, and release. You know, the other option is to just kind of wait it out and, you know, wait for that animal to release on your own. I'd seen something else that was really cool on Garrett Hartle from Reach Out Reptiles. He posted a video, I want to say it was like a year or two ago. He just happened to be filming when he was doing something. Snake got a hold of him, so he went ahead, ran outside, camera followed him, and he demonstrated this technique of getting a hold of that last foot of the snake's tail and just kind of chewing on it like a corn cob. So I'll show you that video real quick. Alright. Here, come here, I might as well show you how to do this. Okay. Well, guys, this is a pretty big retic. Got a hold of me. Let me show you just how to get off. This is a food strike. I was pulling her out. Thought you figured it out. If they're not letting go on their own, chew on their tail like corn on a cob. So I mean, as you guys can see, you know, there's a couple different ways to mitigate it, a couple different ways to manage these bites, and it's one of those things where every case is going to be a little bit different. But there's really simple basic rules that we all need to follow in order to avoid having bad experiences with our animals. You know, I put out a lot of videos on reading our snake's behavior, and that is so I can't emphasize enough how important that is, because like I said, we're talking reticulated pythons. In their natural state, retics, they're really mellow, leisurely animals. You know, if you see a retic all stressed out, charging, they're scared. That's not their natural state of being. And of course, our goal with these animals is to always keep them as close to their natural, comfortable state as we can. And so pretty much what that tends to do is it makes that first minute or so of our interaction with that animal the most, if not the only, real dangerous time with them. and that is just establishing what's going on with them before we get them. Really important. Learn their body language, learn how to handle them, learn how to make that snake comfortable so that we can just avoid this whole thing altogether. But when those mistakes happen, it's really important that we remember that snake, it may be hurting you, it may be drawing blood, it's not his fault. It's your fault. You did something wrong. I did something wrong. You know, anytime we get bit by one of our animals, we screwed up somewhere. So don't take it out on the animal. You know, you hear all these people saying, yeah, if that snake bit me, it'd be in the ground. Well, yeah, really good on you, tough guy. But the point is that, you know, we keep these animals because we love them, we want to see them comfortable, and if something bad happens, that's on us. So if it means that we've got to sit there for a couple extra minutes and endure a little bit of extra pain, you know, maybe have to leave the bandages on a little while longer, that's just what we got to do. And you know, just taking a couple simple steps, you know, paying attention to them and so forth, it goes such a long ways towards making sure that we have really good experiences with these animals. Now, there's other techniques out there, man. I really encourage everybody, get down in the comments, let me know, tell me your experiences, tell me, you know, about the times that you got bit and what you managed to do to get that animal to release. Just because, you know, I didn't mention it here doesn't mean that it doesn't work. And, you know, if you've got any questions about maybe how effective something might be, you know, you'll hear other things. You know, instead of using Listerine, some people use vodka, some people use alcohol. Yeah, I use Listerine because that's what I have on hand. That's what I clean the enclosures with and things like that. It's what's readily available. It's always going to be readily available for me. So that's what I use. And, you know, sometimes it takes a minute. You know, we've just got to be able to suck it up and wait for that episode to pass. And then afterwards, work on healing the relationship that we've got with that animal, because they've just been stressed out, and you know, they may not be as comfortable as they were before. So we got to kind of be patient and just understand that, you know, anything bad that happens, we did something to make it happen. It's not that snake's fault. And don't forget, guys, get down, like the video if it helped you out, get subscribed to the channel. It helps us out a lot, helps get us out to more people. And, you know, we're still working on building. I'm coming back from being sick, so it's been a couple weeks since I put something out. But I've got most of my voice back now, so we're all good. And like I said, if you guys have got any remarks, comments, ideas, you know, any stories or anything like that to share, get down in the comments and let us know. This is a really good forum right here to kind of get a bunch of ideas out there, bounce stuff off of each other, and make sure that we're all, me included, as prepared as we can possibly be for the worst case scenario, just so that we can enjoy keeping these animals as much as I know we all do. So you guys have an outstanding day, and I really look forward to seeing you again on Intrepid Exotics.